drug use isn't a taboo subject in the military community. We're very aware, and it's very prevalent. Some of them are, a lot of it has to do with alcohol and self-medicating with that. A lot of it has to do with what, the VA wants to give us and say that it's, this is what you need. And it's a lot of just trial and error. And we're going to open up a discussion here in a minute about our own trials and errors. And we're not going to talk about studies here today, and we're not going to talk about statistics unless these guys got them on deck ready to go. But we want to talk about ourselves, and I want to talk about myself, because those are the best ways to make connections, personal ones and experiences, And we got a lot of experiences on this panel today. And it's my pleasure to open it up now that we have everybody. This is the veterans panel, My goal was just to open up a discussion and see what the veterans had to say. And my name again is Chris Foy. From 2003 to 2007, I served in the active United States Army. I was an engineer. I was a crane operator. And I got to go to Korea for 1 year straight out of the gate, and that was an experience in itself. Out of there, I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, where we played around on base, for a while, and I got to go airborne. That was probably the highlight of Fort Benning, and then in between that, we got to go out to Kuwait for a year, where I served with the 63rd Engineers, and we did a lot of fortifications and just road construction on the Iraqi border. And when I came back, it was right into activism. And now that you know a little bit about me, I'd like to introduce the panel. We have sitting next to me, Treg Ogborn. He is a current captain in the Massachusetts National Guard. He is a veteran of Iraqi freedom. And it's a pleasure to have somebody with the courage who's active right now to sit on this panel. And he's speaking for his Joes, he's speaking for himself, and he's speaking by his own experiences. And I want to welcome him. Next to him, we have John Kenney, somebody I was just introduced to, but through mutual just feelings and experiences, I felt like I met him right away. He is a former sergeant of the 82nd Airborne and Operation Enduring Freedom veteran. That's awesome. I didn't know he was airborne too. Welcome. Next to me is a pleasure to have here. I served with him in Kuwait in the 63rd Engineers. We were on the border together. We shot the shit together. We endured the boredom together. We endured the long hours of engineering together. And Briant Kane, drove up here from West Virginia to be here and experience the community of marijuana. Because it's not like this down in West Virginia, I assure you. And the culture shock was prevalent, but he's diving right in. And then at the end here, it's my pleasure to have Dr. Dhanabalan, the MD, Harvard, all these titles I don't even really know. MPH, FAAFP, formerly Family Medicine, Occupational Environmental Medicine, Cannabis Therapeutic Specialist. She knows her stuff. Will you pull that in closer, Uma? Awesome. Let me know? Yes. Yeah? So, I'm going to open it up to them now and let them introduce themselves. And, it's the experiences, And Treg, his perspective is amazing.
Little thing here. Anything and everything that I say is completely 100% my own personal opinion. It does not in any way, shape, or form construe an official position of the Massachusetts Army National Guard, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the United States Army, the United States government, or any other government agency. And I also do not advocate for the active use of cannabis while you're in the service, including myself. I'm not a cannabis user currently, because the DoD tells us it's incompatible with military service. That being said, hi. So, thanks, Chris, for the great introduction. So, as far as military goes, I enlisted in the Marine Corps in 2003. I was a tank crewman, so 19 kilo for my Army friends up here. Spent a little time there. Then they decided to send me to college. So I graduated from the Citadel in 2008. This is military school down in South Carolina. got a commission in the Massachusetts Army National Guard, originally as an infantry officer. My wife, Kara, who's the president of Masscann, and also the school administrator for NIC, didn't like the fact that I was in the infantry, so I tricked her and went transportation. So, for those of you that didn't know, a lot of the wars have been on the road. So, she was a little mad when she finally figured it out. So in 2010, I got my time in Iraq and Kuwait. I was a gun truck platoon leader. I had 54 men and women in combat. We were decisively engaged several times by indirect fire, small arms, as well as RPGs, rocket propelled grenades, and artillery shells that they just decided to leave out on the side of the road for us. So that being said, still in the service. It's a good time. My primary purpose here is advocacy. So when it comes to veterans issues and it comes to these other guys that are, guys that are out of the service now that are having issues, and we all do, I want to try to lend as much, I want to lend a resume to something, because a lot of people have these incorrect beliefs that people that use cannabis, either medically or recreationally for that matter, are just bum, stoner, hippies or whatever, especially a lot of the folks that I come across. And while I've got about 10 more years until I can be a cannabis user, I'll be sparking a bowl the day I walk out. So basically, thanks for having me here today. I'm looking forward to interacting with the rest of the panel, and we'll talk soon.
So I'm John. I served from 2003 till 2010 in the United States Army, and thank you. And I served in Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan with the 82nd Airborne Division. I was an infantryman, and met some of the greatest guys I ever met in my life. And I'm not here to talk about my experiences in the Army, but my experiences after. Once you get out, you go to the VA and they just want to pump you full of medications and you lose your personality. You become lethargic. You aren't you anymore, and you don't know what's wrong, but you try to figure it out. And a lot of people turn to drinking, and I saw a lot of guys go down that road, and they go down a path that they end up not being able to come back from. And I was seeing a therapist, and my therapist said, I can't really recommend it right now, but you might want to read up on some medical marijuana. Look at the studies, see what you think. And at first I was a little offended because the stigma surrounding in the military is, stoner, burnout, loser, And I was like, oh man, this is how she thinks of me. You think I'm some kind of stoner, burnout, loser? And so secretly I went and I did the research, and I was surprised at what I found. Specifically, active cannabinoid receptive use will help you forget traumatic experience, so you lose that pain. And I found that interesting, and so I started self-medicating, and the results shocked me. It was impressive, and I never smoked during my active years in the Army, but I found my nightmares are very, very infrequent now, and I'm not as anxious. I'm a lot more laid back, not so uptight and wound up. And it's just, for me, it's something I think that everyone could use, especially if they've experienced some kind of a traumatic event. It's something that I think that anyone could really benefit from. And that's all I have to say about that.
I was in the Army with Foy, haven't seen him since Kuwait. Glad to be here. Thank you guys. NIC is rocking. I really love the program. It's been nothing but hospitality since I got here. Really appreciate that. So for myself, when I went to the VA and I tried to get some help with some issues that I either felt guilty about or it was keeping me up at night, they were like, well, let's try these things called Klonopins. And then I did those 3 times a day at 0.5 milligram, and it was just a little too heavy to get classwork done. So they're like, all right, just sleep on Klonopins, eat lorazepam during the daytime, and take these Flexerol to balance that out. And then that was all right, but then I had to get on valproic acid and then promethazine to keep the dope sickness down. And I was only like 23 years old, so that seemed pretty fucked up. So one night I couldn't sleep. My random roommate, who's 19 years old and led a pretty privileged life, was like, man, just smoke weed with me. And I said no, and I watched some South Park, and I still couldn't fall asleep, so I was like, I'm gonna smoke this weed. And ever since then, I've been great, man. It works, I mean, I'm just successful small business owner at home. I don't sit on the couch all day just smoking out of my mind. I got a dog that I love, and I try to be a nice guy to my friends and family. That's what it's about. Appreciate you guys coming out.
Smokes weed, good person. You know, I want to slide it down to Uma, so we make sure we can hear everybody. Just get rid of that thing. This is, you know, that's the personal experience and the personal discovery. But Dr. Uma here is the science. And Dr. Uma, I want to ask you a question. My big thing with the VA and my experience, you know, and, you know, kind of trying to line that up with my personal experimentation with marijuana as a medicine of self-medicating. Like, why are doctors so willing to prescribe all the medicines that these guys just said?
As far as doctors, the vets actually have a directive that has been put out in July of 2011 by Dr. Petzel, which clearly states all vets that are in states where medical marijuana is available, they are allowed to use it and not have any of their other medications stopped. But that is not the reality of what is happening out there. So we need to have each one of us make sure that if we do know a vet or have somebody that is in touch, a family member, let them know what their rights are. Let them know to educate their doctors. The problem of the interface becomes that the patients are going to a VA administration. The doctors that work for the VA are governed by federal mandates and their regulations. Therefore, they cannot write or recommend for you to use cannabis, which is fine by me. So send them to us. Send them to doctors that do know about it. And I tell my patients, the question is, ask people, what do you know about cannabis? What do you know? If you don't know, let me help you educate you and get the myths taken away and give them the facts. Cannabis is a medicine, and that's what you guys all need to understand. Cannabis is a medicine. It's been around for thousands of years. We had it taken away, and I'm not going to go there, but it's all about money. It's all about money and people having their agendas. But now we have our agenda, which is to get people the right to get their medicine. And question for Obama, why should the state you live in make it that you can't get your medicine? Why does it matter which state you live in to get cannabis? And nobody, and this is a nobody, has ever died from cannabis. Nobody. Take that home. Okay? Tell that to your doctors that are prescribing these medications. And I have a statement. Cannabis is not the entrance drug. It's the exit drug from pharmaceuticals and narcotics. And that's coming from Dr. Uma. Okay? So what I see with my patients are three groups of patients. Patients that had tried it years ago and now are hearing about it, reading about it, and saying, Dr. Uma, I want to be off my meds. I want to try this cannabis. Tell me about it. And therefore, they're coming to get the education. Then you have the patients that have been using it, and they are well-read and knowledgeable. And so those patients also have been self-medicating. So when people come and ask me, Dr. Uma, don't you think everybody's just using it for recreational purposes? My answer to them is they've been self-medicating for all these years. And they're alive, unlike people that have died from pharmaceutical overdoses in combination with alcohol, which is legal. So that's where I'm coming from, and now I'm having the opportunity to work with a great group of people here with the Northeastern Institute of Cannabis and also a clinic called Uplifting Health and Wellness in Natick. I will be teaching a course there called Medical Marijuana. It's not just for patients, it's for any healthcare providers, it's for anybody that wants to get the knowledge so you can share with other people and healthcare providers.
how do you think, it would benefit you as a commander if it was just an option for your Joes to maybe use that in as a medicine as opposed to other things that they're given?
So, of course, thanks, Chris. Obviously, I have to take that as a hypothetical question.
Yeah, hypothetically, this is like, 6 or 7, 10 years from now, if if the atmosphere changes, how do you think that atmosphere would look?
Well, that's a really good question, and one of the things that people sometimes don't really understand about the military is that it's not as breakable as people seem to think. Just like when we, were you guys still in when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed?
I remember that.
Yeah. So Don't Ask, Don't Tell got repealed one day, and the next day we were still the United States Army. It wasn't a big deal. The other thing about the service is that it's typically a young person's game, meaning most of us are going to be in the millennial generation, born after 1982. Most of us that are in the service now have pretty much never known a time where the United States was not at some form of a conflict. So I personally don't really think it'd be that big deal, because speaking from my own perspective, I actually do have a 24-hour Effexor subscription, or prescription, through the Veterans Affairs Administration. After I came home, so as an officer in the military, I didn't necessarily have the same issues that enlisted guys have, because a lot of times enlisted guys don't have any control over their lives when they're in these crappy situations. They're bored, they have nothing to do, and then they just get told by some jerk-off that doesn't know what the hell he's doing to do what he's supposed to do. Guys like me. I didn't work for a living. That's pretty. No, I'm joking. So they end up with these symptoms that are much more. They're just different. In my case, my problem comes from not big issues. I can handle the world crashing down around me. It's not a big deal. But God damn it, Kara moved my cigarettes. Where the hell are my cigarettes? And I just lose it. So I end up having to go on Effexor, and it's not a big deal. What do I think it would look like in the service, hypothetically? It would look exactly like we look now. So many of us are medicated anyway that it wouldn't really change anything.
Do you think it would alleviate a lot of the side effects that we have to deal with? How many soldiers do you think we lose from the self-medicating when they get back that maybe would stick it out in the military, or maybe they'd had a better go at it?
Well, that's actually interesting, because just a couple months ago we actually had a soldier from the Massachusetts Army National Guard OD on heroin, self-medicating. So these issues do affect the military too, just like the rest of the South Shore and other areas where heroin's really bad. I think that it would help, most likely. Obviously you can't be intoxicated during the day in any way, shape, or form. There's certain strains that would probably be okay.
I know some people that try harder than others to not be at least get caught.
Oh, of course, but there's probably certain strains that would be preferential over others. The other thing that we deal with a lot of time is suicides. I believe that there's 33 veterans a day that commit suicide. Either one. Yep, every Dr. Uma, one vet every 63 minutes kills themselves, takes their own life. And that's people that are in the service and out of the service. It's easier for us to keep the statistics on the guys that are still in, because we still own them. But once they get out and you lose them, they're gone. So I think the cannabis could be a very useful medication for troops. It doesn't have the side effects, and it's obviously not going to kill you. So that's basically what I'm thinking.
Hypothetically, I think that would be a good, that would be good for the service.
There's one other point that I want to make, and I may be simply speaking for myself and not on behalf of all vets. We're not sick. We're not broken. Veterans are not people to be pitied. We have issues that are different that people may or may not understand because they haven't seen it. It's just different. We're not broken. We want to live normal lives. We want to have jobs. We want to go to school. And we're not people to be pitied or feared. Okay? Just in case anybody was ever wondering.
I think what you're saying there, is, something that I think of, because I had an experience myself when I was 18 years old that really gave a lot of insight to me very young. I was dealing with a cancer patient who was dealing with severe OxyContin prescriptions and heavy dosages, and she ended up dying, passing out with a cigarette in her mouth, and the house went up in flames. And this was something that stuck with me very young, being 18 years old, and I experienced my PTSD experience, young. And then I went into the military with that, young, just cutting loose. Went to Korea, went to Georgia, went to Iraq, or went to Kuwait, and Kuwait was like really strange environment, as far as our capabilities of doing stuff. And I didn't actually end up getting that, seeing the combat. It's funny how it's like a crapshoot in the military. We trained to go up to the Syrian border, and then when we landed in Kuwait, there was a unit a week ahead of us because they double booked the mission or something. I don't guess that's a thing. And we sat in Kuwait for 4 months until they tasked out all the engineers and sent us to work with Kane on the border. So it's so crazy how it's a crapshoot, and like one person's and the next experience is so different. But I came in with this severe anxiety and PTSD that didn't even come from the military, and that's one point I wanted to make on this panel too, is like, if this isn't PTSD and the benefits of it isn't just to the military, and I wanted to touch base on that. I think, John, I have a question for you, just because I really want to learn more about you. As you felt the stigma of, personally, of experimenting with, marijuana medically. Did you find support in your circles? Like, was it just a stigma that you felt, or did you feel like it actually came from outside sources?
I think it's I think part of it, when you sign your contract saying you won't do it when you're active here, that stuck on my mind. I was like, I took an oath, and I take my word seriously. So I wasn't going to do it while I was active. But once I was out and I started experimenting and seeing the effects and seeing how it worked for me, at first I was a little embarrassed, I was a little ashamed, and then I started speaking to a couple of my buddies that were in with me, and shockingly, they were doing it too, and they were, oh yeah, I know, I just don't really like to talk about it. I was like, and I think if more vets didn't have to feel that stigma was surrounding it, that they would talk about it and spread around more, I think it would reach some, and I think it might actually affect the numbers of suicides in veterans. I think it really could help.
That absolutely. I mean, it wasn't a week that we were back. The third ID got back a little bit before us, and maybe like a month, and we had been supporting them in ammo supply drops, and they had already, I think, had like 1 or 2 deaths before they even got back. Sometimes it's just recklessness. Sometimes you just don't care, and you lose them that way too. And that coming back, I remember the experience of coming back, and they it's like kind of cover your own ass sort of thing, as far as is everybody okay? It's kind of a blanket kind of question. Maybe it gets busted down to squad level of asking the question about how you're feeling. Is everybody okay? Do you want to talk to somebody before you get off this plane and see your family? You're like, no, I don't want to talk to anybody before I get off this plane and see my family. And then they're released back into the general community of just glad to be home, and you don't know how to balance those feelings sometimes. And I've personally worked with a lot of vets, and I'm reiterating these feelings of theirs, and the similar ones that I felt when we had interesting experience in Kuwait, and I want to talk about this. We had a pretty good connection for marijuana in Kuwait, and there was moonshine there too, and we got the job done, huh? It wasn't anything. What do you think that environment in Kuwait was like? I want you to talk about that and how we actually, it was there. It didn't deteriorate the military.
Well, to bring that to the table, to be honest, if I partook in that, I don't remember. But that might be because of all the potentially radiator distilled Kuwaiti moonshine we were drinking.
That was a lot of moonshine. Maybe you didn't hit the joint when it was coming around.
I mean, I was probably already passed out, honestly. I don't know. Or I might have, and I just don't really remember because I was such an alcoholic. That's totally possible, you know, and marijuana is one of the things that took me away from alcoholism, so that's great for my liver, at least. Yeah, for sure.
You know, being over there and some of the pills they would give you, I remember the heat being so overbearing. You couldn't you couldn't even take them. Like, and so we were just drinking moonshine and just hanging out, and it was really boring. It's surprising the boredom of the whole thing. Dr. Uma, I would love to hear any personal experiences you've had with vets, like specifically, and did you have to combat the conditioning? Like, did you had to re-educate them in any ways? Like, how do you go? What's the best way to go about re-educating somebody to the benefits of marijuana?
I think first giving them that there is a science behind cannabis. I've had the fortunate experience of working with several vets, and actually right now we're involved. I'm the principal investigator for a study that's being done for vets that are in a state where cannabis is available to them and that they're using it, and that they meet the criteria for PTSD and that are not breastfeeding or pregnant. They can participate in this study, and it's an online study, vetsptsdstudy.org. And one of the things that we're realizing is that a lot of them are very afraid to talk about this, and the fear factor is huge. And I think being able to let them know they could do this online, and that they could do this where they're reporting their symptoms, how they're using the cannabis, and they're actually getting off of their other medications, or they're at least being able to decrease their medications. And for anybody on psychiatric meds, you can't just abruptly stop. PTSD diagnosis is not across the board as a criteria as of yet in all states where medical marijuana is available. So that's something that we do need to have, is there needs to be some standardization for these criteria that people can meet in order to get their certification. Massachusetts is fortunate that way, where it does give the doctor the discretion to be able to recommend it for other things than the top 8, which is usually glaucoma, HIV, nausea, hepatitis C, Crohn's, COPD, asthma, and the list goes on. But I think the vets want another option. They want to live life. And the vets is not just them. It's their family members. It's the people that they have to work with. And you mentioned something, Treg, about anger, you know, flashbacks. These are real feelings that these people are experiencing, not being able to go to a place. I mean, these are the symptoms of PTSD. And you're right about that with Chris. It's not just the vets. Anybody that's had an experience or heard of an experience that's been traumatic and having to deal with that is post-traumatic stress disorder. And the vets need to keep speaking out like you're all doing right now and reach out to as many people, because it is an option, and they should have that, be able, and not have their other medication stopped.
Thank you. It was, you know, I love getting everybody up here. This was an idea that I just wanted to do, and everybody was instantly wanted to do it too. And one of the things we wanted to do was open it up to any questions if anybody might have. If there's any veterans in the audience, you know, what experiences you might have had, and if they at all mirrored ours, you know, we'd like to talk to you about it. If anybody has any questions, or for Dr. Uma too, you know, we're going to open it up right here, and if not, we're probably going to wind it down and see what's next on the list. Anybody have any questions? My man.
Come on up,
He's just saying thank you. Yeah, thank you, man. You know, my military experience was very fulfilling in a way. You know, I've used it to my advantage tremendously, and I made a lot of good friendships that I still have today. And it's great to see all these guys. You know, we're all back here and we're doing it. If there aren't any other questions, we're going to get these guys out of here so we can go smoke. Mick.
How can other people in the military or have family in the military work to make things better for you guys with cannabis is concerned?
How can the military, family, and supporters help us in, was it how we're concerned?
Where cannabis is
Where's cannabis is concerned.
changing federal laws, we should go contact.
I'll take this one. Write your congressmen. Write your senators. Get politically involved. Speak out. Encourage your friends that are veterans to follow the rules, because the rules are what they are. You don't get to be, when you're in the service, you don't get to be an activist. So I've had to use certain weasel words here and there, but people that are outside the service, write your congressmen, write your senators, write your governors, turn up to vote, pay attention, be ready, especially in 2016 when the legalization initiative comes through Massachusetts. Get to the polls and be involved.
Get registered to vote. Any closing statements, guys? You know, it was a pleasure having you here and discussing all of this. And I hope that, you know, these images, and you guys go and just talk about what you just saw. We'll be doing it again next year. You know, this is going to be a staple point at the rally, this tent, and, you know, these discussions. So I want to thank everybody for coming out.